Welcome again, my friends, to the Crybaby Cure. Mrs. Foxglove was baking brownies, thick, chewy, chocolatey, nutty brownies, the kind her 4 children loved. She slid the last pan into the oven, lifted Solomon the black cat down off the kitchen stool where he was drooling up at Alma Gluck the canary, sat herself down. It was a very dreary February day. The sky was grey, the snow in the yard was grey, slushy, and a cold, raw wind was swishing around her house. Mrs. Foxglove hoped that the children had not left their galoshes on the school bus and had remembered to put on their mittens. She was especially worried about Melody, whose eyes and nose always seemed to be so red and chapped. She sighed and stroked Solomon, who had jumped into her lap, then pushed him off onto the floor and opened the oven door. The brownies were baking beautifully. She switched the bottom pans to the top shelf and the top pans to the bottom shelf, then closed the door and put the milk on to heat for the children's cocoa. She was just stirring in the cocoa when from way down the street she heard a noise like a fire siren. Woo-wee-ba, went the noise, getting louder and closer. Mrs. Foxglove sighed and opened the back door. Cornell, her moreless boy, who was 11, came dashing up the back steps, gave his mother a hug, and said, "I smell brownies." Harvard, who was 9, stamped the snow off his galoshes and said, "Another 100 in spelling well. How many brownies can I have?" Emmy, who was sick, said, "I lost another tooth today, but I can chew brownies. How many can I have?" Melody, who was 8, came shuffling up the walk, her mouth so wide her mother could almost see her stomach. "Mother," she was bawling, "the kids are teasing me." Mrs. Foxglove said, "Hurry up, Melody. I want to shut the door before the house gets cold." "I can't hurry," Melody sobbed as she wiped her red nose on her sleeve. "I fell down my knee hurts, so I can hardly walk." "All right," said her mother. "I'll shut the door and you can take as long as you like." She closed the door. Instantly a wail like a dying hyena filled the air, and Melody came charging up the back steps and threw herself against the back door, yelling, "Let me in, I'm freezing." Mrs. Foxglove opened the door, and Melody, who had been leaning heavily against it, fell into the kitchen. Emmy, Harvard, and Cornell, who were sitting on the floor taking off their galoshes, laughed uproariously. Melody lay stretched out on the floor like a squashed spider, bawling. Mrs. Foxglove pushed her aside a little with her foot and shut the door. Immediately, Melody screamed, "You kicked me. My own mother kicks me." Mrs. Foxglove said, "Melody, dear, I only pushed you a little with my foot so we could close the door." Solomon walked over and licked her ear with his little tongue. "Ouch!" she shrieked. "Solomon scratched me, right here by the ear." "He did not," Emmy said. "He just licked your ear, you old ball baby." "My ear's bleeding." Melody snuffed. "I'll probably get rabies." "Gee, Mom, isn't she awful?" said Cornell. "She's the biggest baby in the whole school. Nobody likes her." "They do so," said Melody, sitting up and wiping her eyes with her mittens. "Oh, they do not," said Harvard. "They call you old wet wash rag Foxglove." "That's what you call me," said Melody. "Did you hear that, Mommy? He calls me old wet wash rag Foxglove all the time." She began to cry again. Mrs. Foxglove said, "Oh my goodness, I smell the brownies. Out of my way, everyone, and pick up your things and take them into the coat closet." The children gathered up their galoshes and coats and mittens and caps and hurried out of the kitchen. All but Melody, who was lying on her back on the floor, her mittened hands scrunched into her eyes, crying. Mrs. Foxglove opened the oven door, pulled out a pan of brownies, and poked a broom straw down into it. The broom straw came out clean, so she knew they were done. The cocoa was almost boiling, so she took it off the burner and set it aside. She was setting up the cups when she noticed Melody. She said, "Come on, Chickabiddy, stop that snuffing and take off your things. The brownies are all done." Melody hiccuped several times, but did not move. Mrs. Foxglove reached down, took a hold of her arms, and lifted her to her feet. Melody bellowed, "Ouch, ouch, you're hurting me." Her mother gave her a little shake. "I am not hurting you, and I'm good and tired of you being such a big crybaby." She took Melody by the shoulder, turned her in the direction of the front hall, and gave her a little push. Melody crumpled into a little ball and began to sob hysterically. "He's so mean, I can't stand it. He shake me, jerk me, push me. No, go up to your room and stay there until you can be cheerful, said Mrs. Foxglove crossly. Now scat. Snuffing and glubbing, Melody went. Only she didn't scat. She shuffled very, very slowly. Mother watched until she reached the doorway, then, sighing with exasperation, went back and began pouring the cocoa. Emmy came skipping into the kitchen. She hugged her mother on the knees and said, "You're the best mom in the whole world. Can I have 6 brownies?" Her mother bent down, kissed her on top of her head, and said, "Let's start with 1. Then Harvard and Cornell came in with Hip Boy, the dog, and for a while Mrs. Foxglove was so busy that she didn't have time to think about Melody. And the telephone rang, and it was Mrs. Popsicle. She wanted to know if Emmy and Melody and Cornell and Harvard could all come to her twins, Trent and Tansy's birthday party next Saturday. Mrs. Foxglove said certainly they would love it. Mrs. Popsicle said they were to wear ballet clothes and come at 11, because Mr. Popsicle was going to take them to Playland and then to a movie. As soon as Mrs. Foxglove hung up the phone, the children, all sounding like owls, began wooing and wadding and wenning. And Mrs. Foxglove told them that it was a birthday party on Saturday, which was only the day after tomorrow, and that they were going to Playland and the movie. Boys whistled through their teeth and said "Zowie" and "Hot diggity," and Emmy said, "I'm going upstairs right now and get Bruno all dressed." "Oh, Mom," said Cornell, "don't let her take that dumb old teddy bear. All his stuffing's hanging out." Emmy said, "I take Bruno every place I go, Mother Cornell, and he can't help it because his stuffing is coming out. So there." Harvard said, "Oh, so there yourself." Quickly, Mrs. Foxglove said, "Boys, I want you to go down and finish up that play table you're making me. But remember, put all of Daddy's tools away when you finish." "I will," Harvard said. "I always do. It's old Cornell that always leaves stuff out." "Oh, yeah?" Cornell said. "What about the hammer you left over at Fetlock Harroway's?" "Come, boys," said Mrs. Foxglove, "you'd better get started. It's almost 4:30. When the cellar door had closed behind the boys, Mrs. Foxglove turned to Emmy and said, "Emmy, dear, if you run upstairs and get Bruno, I'll sew his stuffing back in, and while I'm doing that, perhaps you would like to wash and iron his clothes." After Emmy had gone upstairs, Mrs. Foxglove was scrubbing out the cocoa pan when she heard somebody sniffing behind her. She turned to find Melody, her eyes swollen to tiny slits, her nose as red as a radish, her cheeks blotchy, her lips dry and cracked, standing in the doorway. Melody said, or rather choked out, "I notice you're watching the cocoa pan. As you get itty, you're supposed the brownies are good, too." "Your cup of cocoa is right there on the breakfast table," said her mother cheerfully, "and there are lots and lots of brownies in the cookie jar. However, you can't have anything until you wash your face and cheer up." "I don't think I want anything anyway," Melody said sadly, and went back upstairs. Mrs. Foxglove groaned. What was she going to do with Melody? What was the matter with her? Perhaps she had better call Dr. Pillsbury. She went into the hall and dialed Dr. Pillsbury's number. His nurse answered and said he was busy, but would call her back in a few minutes. Emmy came in. From one hand she was dragging Bruno by the leg, and from the other a laundry bag of all his dirty clothes. Mrs. Foxglove sent her upstairs to her work basket, and then the phone rang, and it was Dr. Pillsbury, who, when he heard about Melody, said that he would stop by on his way home. Bruno was all mended, with the new black shiny shoe button eyes, and Mrs. Foxbury was ironing his best blue and white checkered rompers, and the boys were sanding the play table with the electric sander when Dr. Pillsbury arrived. He said, "What a busy, happy family. Do you happen to have a cup of hot coffee, Martha?" "Made it especially for you," Mrs. Foxglove said, handing Emmy the rompers and turning off the iron. "Take Bruno and his clothes upstairs and tell Melody to come down." As she poured Dr. Pillsbury his coffee and put some brownies on the plate, she said, "Tim, I'm awfully worried about Melody. She cries all the time over everything. Do you think it could be rheumatic fever?" "Does she have a fever?" Dr. Pillsbury asked, taking 2 brownies. "No, she doesn't," said Mrs. Foxglove. "In fact, she seems very well, but she's so sad. Everything makes her cry. She cries so much, and her face is so red and swollen all the time she looks as though she had been stung by 1,000,000 bees." Dr. Pillsbury slowly stirred his coffee and said, "If I can find nothing wrong with Melody physically, then I would suggest you call Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle." "Will she know what to do?" Mrs. Foxglove asked. "She certainly will," said Dr. Pillsbury. "She knows more about children than anyone in this town. Well, I know she cured Cornell's table manners and stopped Emmy's tattling, but I didn't dream she would do anything about crying." I'll bet she can, said Dr. Pillsbury. My goodness, Martha, these brownies are so good it's criminal. I want you to make me a solemn pledge you won't give Eunice the recipe. I'm much too fat as it is. Mrs. Foxglove laughed and looked very happy. Then Melody came shuffling and snuffing downstairs. But this time her face was sort of purple plum color, her nose was like a ripe strawberry, and her mother couldn't see her eyes at all. Dr. Pillsbury said, "Come here so I can see how heavy you are." Slowly, hiccuping with every step, Melody walked over to him. He lifted her up and sat her on his knee. Then he said, "You were quite a chunk for 8 years old. Stick out your tongue." Dr. Pillsbury looked at her tongue, looked down her throat, looked at her ears, listened to her lungs and heart, poked at her stomach, and took her temperature. When he finally said, "Sound as a nut, except for a very advanced case of acute 8-year-old sadness," better called Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle before a certain party's tears wear out. After Dr. Pillsbury had gone, Mrs. Foxglove sent Melody and Emmy next door to Mrs. Rocket's house to borrow an onion, while she called Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle. And that is where we'll end for today, my friends. Join me again for part 2. For now, goodbye.